Hi, welcome to the Nobodies Project. This is where I interview artists across all different mediums about their creative process, how they started, maybe where they're going, maybe their favorite project, maybe their least favorite project, their biggest rut, how they stay creative. And bigger than that, this is a community. So we want you to be involved. We want you to submit your artwork to us, and you can do that at submit@thenobodiesproject.com. You can send us an email, and we promise to give you honest, real feedback because we think everybody deserves it. And that feedback isn't just going to come from us at the Nobodies Project, it's also going to come from the featured artists that you see on our website and in this episode. This week we have Gross Papillon. He is a comic book artist and a man who uses a moniker, which I feel like I always say incorrectly. He was actually there when I came up with the Nobodies Project at the Artist Accountability Group and was the first person that I interviewed maybe 7 or 8 months ago. And I couldn't be more happy with who I got to do it with. He's delightful, incredibly talented, and just one of the most likable people I know. So please enjoy this episode, and excuse me for calling it Talking to Nobodies. We didn't have a good name yet. First off, thank you for being here. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for the beer.
Yeah. We don't know what this is going to be called. I think it might be called Talking to Nobodies. But basically, if this is the first time watching the show, listening to the podcast, this is going to be a podcast where we talk to creatives who don't have a huge following, who just do art because they love doing art. At least that's the hope. Yeah. And then kind of creating community around it and highlighting those people who I think should have a bigger following, or at least should have more people appreciating the art. And today, our very first guest is Hank. And I don't know your I feel like I should have asked your last name before.
No,
We've hung out a number of times.
It's all good, and I'm honored. Well, I'm Hank, and I am actually keeping anonymity on my account as Gross Papillon.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah, which there's a reason for that, but we could talk about that.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the first thing I like to ask is, what do you do for money? And then what do you do for art?
Yeah, so right now I'm working with my family. They have a farmstead creamery, and so I help them make cheese and sell cheese at farmers markets and stuff. And I'm actually going back to school to get my master's so I can be an art teacher.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then what do you do for art?
And then for art, comics. I'm all about comics.
All right. I've seen a lot of your comics. I love a lot of your comics.
Thank you.
One of the big reasons why I want to do this podcast is because when I find something I really like, I become a salesman for that. Mm-hmm. And so lately, you've been the thing I've been selling to people.
Hell yeah.
I remember Kyle Gandy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I sold him on him. Emily, everybody who I think might like a comic book,
awesome.
or even for example, somebody who likes Venture Bros. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you should check out this guy here.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, the thing I'm most excited about is your newest comic, Don't Fear the Juicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. I'm really excited about it. So it started as I just wanted to push myself and develop a daily practice because I've been working on another short story for a while, but I kind of lost motivation, and I realized I needed to set some more limitations for myself. And I was talking to a friend who's actually he's in medical school, and we were just talking about focus and dopamine and stuff, and he was talking about how the human brain can focus for a maximum of 90 minutes in flow state, and then that focus starts to go down in quality. And then so I was like, well, I'm going to set a timer and see if I can draw a comic page in 90 minutes. And that actually really helped a lot, and it just got me excited about doing comics again. It was really fun it's been really fun to race the clock. And I've been drawing a lot more because of this. It's a really fun challenge. And in general, I just wanted to scale back my projects to something more reasonable. So I'm just drawing a single page every single day, sometimes more depending on the day. But and then I'm posting it every single day, which is also really fun. And I think the dopamine reward of having a finished product after 90 minutes, it usually takes me longer than 90 minutes, but that's really kept me going. So,
do you have trouble starting that 90 minutes?
Yeah, that's certainly the hardest part. And the biggest challenge is always showing up for anything. So,
yeah, that's the biggest thing is I always talk about it like it's the gym. Once I'm there, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I'll sit and do nothing all day. Totally. And then I just can't get myself to start doing it. And then I start doing it and I love doing it.
Yeah.
So with that, like, is that how you started getting out of your ruts? Or do you have anything? Because the biggest thing I've seen with creative people is I'm always amazed when I see people who just produce things seemingly all day, every day. Mm-hmm. And every single day they're creating something, making something. And I look at them, I'm like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah,
because how the hell? I mean, I guess if we were like that, we'd be better. But how do you get out of your rut?
Yeah. I feel that so hard. I've been in a lot of ruts over the last 2 years. So many projects that start and stop. And I constantly feel like when I start a project, I have to outrace my doubts to finish it, because as soon as the doubt catches up, I'm paralyzed, completely fucking paralyzed. And that happened with a project recently, literally just a 13-page short story. And I made it 11 pages. I had 11 pages completely finished and I couldn't draw the last 2 pages. And it took 2 months to do those last 2 pages. And so the creative rut is for real. And I mean, so I've been doing this comic for just a couple weeks now, or maybe I think we're going to be getting close to a month soon, but it has certainly kept me from going into a rut with it, just having the 90-minute expectation. And what I've been trying to create a deep work ritual. Have you ever heard of the book Deep Work?
No.
It's really cool. He's just talking about how, in American society, a lot of work isn't deep work and it's not fulfilling. But that deep work, when you're in that flow state and you're being challenged to your max, that's what makes life super fulfilling. And so he interviews a bunch of highly prolific and successful people. And then he talks about how most of those successful people have a deep work ritual, which is what they do to get in the zone. And so I've been trying to figure out a ritual, which right now I try to do a 10-minute meditation, a 10-minute walk where I think about the page. And then I come back inside and start the timer and sketch it out and try to get it done in 90 minutes.
Dang. It seems like you have a nice schedule. Mine is so much more chaotic than that. And I'm not going to go into it. But with that rut and getting out of it, is there ever for those projects that went abandoned, how do you deal with that? For me, I just don't talk about them and just hope nobody brings them up. But one of the things that I do is I make sure to tell people about my projects to try to hold me accountable, because I don't want to be somebody who doesn't follow through. Yeah. But I do it all the time. I feel like you're a little bit more secretive about your stuff.
I try to be, because I had heard that, when you tell somebody about a project, you get a dopamine reward because usually they're fucking stoked about it.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then your drive can go down a little bit because you already got a little bit of a reward,
which is all we're after.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's definitely happened to me in the past. And although I kind of have conflicting ideas about it, because I did I'm trying to remember what the name of this book is called. It's the four traits or something, and it's about motivation. And you can take a little test. And so there's obligers who have to have external pressure to get something done. And I'm definitely an obliger. And and in her chapter about obligers, I felt like she was in my head, because she's obligers are the people who most often tend to think that something is wrong with them because they have goals and cannot commit, but it's because there's no external pressure. But, they show up to work on time, get homework done on time. But any personal goal, like it just goes to shit. So,
oh man, I'm afraid to read that.
It's really good.
Because I just know I'm just going to be seen too hard and then just be like, I don't have excuses now.
Totally. But so that's what, we've started the monthly creative meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think is beginning to help a little bit, trying to create. It's the hard thing because you have to create external sources of pressure. So I think you are on to something with telling somebody. But for me, it has to be a little structured. I've told our mutual friend Cody, 8 p.m. every day, you have to ask me where the page of Juicer is if you haven't seen it yet.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
It's somebody who's like my writing partner, who'll definitely be on this podcast, and you guys know. Kyle Gandy, he is brilliant writer. He's a super funny dude, but it was really interesting because you leave him to his own devices. He'll get stuff done, but kind of in the same way where it's like, well, nobody knows what I'm doing. It's fine. But as soon as I set up a Asana board for him, just a tracker, and I just said, this is due when, the dude just starts piling out stuff. And I'm the same way. I just need to do that. So I set up my schedule. I'm fine. But for me, it's the getting out of the rut, and it's the external pressure. My last project I actually completed was Bradley's music video.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I scheduled I was like, Bradley, do you want to go grab a beer and talk about this music video I almost have done? At that point, I was pretty far away. I almost barely had anything done. But I met up with Bradley, and I told him when it would be done. Mm-hmm. And Bradley's just excitement, and also his positive energy just... It gives me that energy and that dopamine where I'm like, all right, I need to do that because I want more of that Bradley. And
definitely.
It's maybe I'm using Bradley for some reason, but it's mutually beneficial.
I think I'm kind of using Bradley as well because my comic is full of inside jokes. And when Brad reaches out because of the joke, I feel really good. I'm like, yes, at least somebody appreciates it. So I have to do another one.
Yeah. That kind of leads me to, so a big thing about this is getting artists who maybe don't have the platform, maybe don't have the following or whatever. Are you somebody who, if everything went well, you would want a huge following? Or I couldn't imagine you being a huge celebrity kind of guy, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. Cult following, cult status is absolutely that's what I would want. I would love to have a project animated one day. That would be that's a dream, a bucket list item for sure. I would love to see a work animated, but certainly I wouldn't want to be recognized on the street or anything like that. Definitely not my style.
You don't want to be Stan Lee.
No, definitely not. And I really love. I've listened to a couple of podcasts with Justin Roiland, the voice of Rick and Morty. He's so cool, and he's a super, he seems like a very insecure, thoughtful guy, and he does get recognized sometimes. I would not want to be Rick and Morty big by any means.
Yeah, Dan Harmon's too big.
But
Alex Hirsch, perfect.
Perfect, yes,
perfect.
Absolutely.
That's a perfect level.
I think that would be really cool. But even then, I feel like there'd be all sorts of problems in my head. I would certainly have to work with...
I think it's grass is always greener on the other side because when you don't have any pressure at all, there is some freedom of... I've put out stuff, for example, the last podcast I did, I put all that stuff out and I'm like, this is garbage. I know this is garbage, but I'm going to put it out. Nobody's going to see it. And if anything else, it's going to be a reminder to be like, okay, that's how bad I was. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to keep getting better. One of the things, talking about Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon, one of the things I really took away from Dan Harmon is that he always said when he was with Schraub is that we need to just put out a ton of garbage because that's the only way you get better. Mm-hmm. And he was specifically talking about writing, but it applies to, I think, everything. You're never going to, and it's something I suffer with I'd say I'm a perfectionist, but I think that's just a cop out of that's a general person of who I am. But where I put something out and it's so bad that I refuse to put it out.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way because I don't don't really promote any of my stuff. Like I just put it out there. And it's funny because my mom calls me a perfectionist. And I'm like, have you seen my room or my car? Like, I do not think I'm a perfectionist. But then I thought about it a little more, and I do think I am kind of competitive or a perfectionist in a way. But I think it's, well, what you were just talking about, I was talking to a friend about this today where, like, yeah, you have to do a bunch of stuff to get better. And then it's painful because it never matches your taste level, but you have to put out a ton to get your skills up to your taste level. And like you get into art or any creative thing because you have a taste for it. But yeah, you have to really grind to get the skill up to match the taste.
What's your least favorite project you ever put out?
Oh boy.
Is there anything that just sticks out for you?
Well, there's one that I'm actually glad I didn't put it out, but I did. It was 42 pages. I had it drawn. I didn't have it all inked or I didn't have it finished. But there were a lot of circumstances. But it was brutally honest, kind of about like my relationship with my parents and my relationship with my girlfriend at the time. And actually the reason that I'm not using my full name on my art right now is when I was gearing up thinking I was going to put it out, and like I still was on all my personal social medias, and that's what I was putting my art out on. I went and told a family member, like, hey, this is going to be like pretty vulnerable. It's going to talk about some subjects like sex and marijuana, and the family member was like, I was seeking like some sort of understanding. Mm-hmm. Like I knew that they weren't going to be down with it, but I was just trying to express like
get out ahead of it.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of doing damage control after the fact. And they were like, well, everything has a price, and if the price of your art is embarrassing your family, like that's a choice you have to make. And that's not the reason that I don't regret putting it out, or that but that project, it was too big. It was like 42 pages. It was messy, not a good story, and I was definitely trying to bite off way more than I could chew at the time. And so I'm glad I didn't put it out, because since I've scaled back to doing short stories and then a daily comic. So
do you think you'll ever revisit that project? Is there a reason it sticks out as your least favorite because it did mean something to you?
Yeah, well, it certainly, I mean, I had a lot of fun working on it, and I worked on it for a while. But then, I mean, so a lot of it was about my relationship with my then girlfriend, who is an ex now. So that sort of throws a wrench in the whole project. But actually, a piece of it, or I had reimagined it recently, kind of with the setting of Don't Fear the Juicer, which is me and my old roommate.
The connection, you're like, now X. Anyways, I had this slasher about X.
yeah, exactly. So it has morphed. Like there's been multiple. I'm like, I still want to use part of that, and so that's kind of. I'm glad it didn't go out, so that the good parts can be used in other things. Other projects, though. I mean, I've really, I did two webcomics in college, and they were both a lot more family friendly, or just all ages. And I sort of rebranded as, I guess, more adult comics.
I was going to ask, like, where you currently sit in that.
Yeah, well, my dream project for sure is, my old comic, The Great Zeju, an old web comic, very like lighthearted and goofy. I drew it for about a year, I think, did like 50 little chapters. And
just 50 little chapters.
just 4 panels though, so they weren't. But I really loved it, and that was the first time I had that much success with being consistent with anything and doing that many chapters. And so that holds a special place in my heart, and I want to. It will come back at some point. Actually, that's the short story that I have a chapter written, and then I went in the creative rut with it before doing Don't Fear the Juicer. So that comic though is definitely more all ages and more positive. And there's some things I want to say with it. And if I had to like elevator pitch it, it would be like, what if Dragon Ball Z also taught you how to meditate and be mindful of your feelings and stuff? So
that's a strong pitch. I like that. I mean,
Thank
comparing
you.
to Dragon Ball Z is going to be a hard one to
yeah,
get to.
absolutely.
But with the meditating, it honestly now is the time to throw something like that into the mix because it seems right.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
And like, I mean, a lot of my comics have been just for fun, just for self-expression.
Right.
And then I'm trying to, I guess I want to be more intentional about what I say, I guess. I always want to make art that is just like vomiting feelings, like just a real feeling and just vomiting out there because I need to get it out of my head or whatever, just capturing something real. But then I want to create art that more intentionally like isn't escapism for the audience, that like draws you into your personal experience. That's what I really want to do. So
right. A couple things I want to dive into is some of that stuff with escapism and all that.
Yeah.
For example, who was the comedian? I forget which comedian it was, but he talked about how. Oh no, it was a band, the Front Bottoms, who you've recently started like really getting into.
Yeah.
One of the things that Brian Sella said is that when you listen to a lot of his songs, they're very sad and they're very, they're heavy songs, and that's kind of why the lyrics like hit people so well. But the other thing is that people always ask like, is he sad? But like, are you okay? Are you depressed?
Yeah.
But his biggest thing is that once he writes it down, gets it out, he's the happiest guy. Like he's a very happy guy, but he gets it out and it's done. It's out there. It's done. How are you with that and translating that into art?
Yeah, I certainly, I guess, I draw horror comics. That's what I've been doing. And in high school, my art was edgy and kind of dark. And I remember like in my AP art class or whatever class it was, like whenever somebody would look at my art, this certain girl, she was like, "You have issues. It's like, you need to talk to somebody." And like, that really hurt as an impressionable high schooler. And it's like, this is just what's in my head.
Every word.
Yeah.
Every word.
And my art teacher, who had been like, she was amazing and had been so encouraging. And like my final project was a series of like where human body parts and animal parts were being stitched together to create new creatures and stuff. And it was really weird. And at this private Christian school, she was like all for it until the art show. And then she was like, "I don't think this art has a message. And some people will misinterpret it, and so I'm gonna have to ask you to not hang a few pieces," which also really hurt after she had been like on board with me developing every single piece with her. And so I really feel that. And also like I think I've got anxiety and occasional depressive periods, but I think I'm generally a pretty happy, positive guy. But like that's how I cope with stuff, is kind of doing the nasty, horrific art too. So,
and the interesting thing about that, and I think I'm probably more well versed with comedians than like comic book artists.
Yeah.
But like the comics that are super dirty and all that are typically super nice.
Yeah.
I think you like the cleanest guys
totally
are like terrible people.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Bill Cosby, that whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny that way that like everybody who I've met who've done something maybe similar to you or very, very like raunchy stuff typically are super nice people.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting juxtaposition of like, where does that art come from? Does it come from I don't want to leave the high school part because I'm interested in I've got some questions for you. But like, do you think that comes from like, actually, I was joking with my friend today. He texted me saying that he found out his dad washes his hats in the dishwasher. And I was joking with him because we were talking about creative stuff. And I said, well, at least you have some creative friction. My parents were loving and supportive and let me be an art student. And do you have that friction from the parents? Because that's something I was interested in with the conversation you had with them.
Yeah.
Are they supportive of the art? Like if you said, I'm going to take my money, I'm going to becoming artist and that's my full-time job, would they be all for it, or what's the reaction there?
It's certainly been a journey with them, because I knew from a very young age that I wanted to do comics. Like,
It's a question I had for you too.
yeah, I feel very lucky in that, like, I've sort of had a focus on comics. And so, like, when I told my parents that when I was young, you know, it's like, there's no money in comics. Like, that's like, it's a fun hobby, but you shouldn't pursue it outside of that. And then, I mean, I went to college originally I started college with an engineering degree, declared strictly just to please my parents. Really? And then during the course of college, I changed it to a digital communication arts major. But I mean, I really just did the college thing to please my parents. Like, I always had this thought in the back of my head, like, I should really just double down on comics, because I've known since I was like 7 years old that I want to make comics. And so there's certainly that friction. They are a lot more supportive now, but then I'm also more selective in what I show them of my work. Yeah. But we've had enough conversations that they know how much it means to me and how much I really care and would like to make a positive difference with some comics. Right. But
what would it take for you to, like, drop everything to do that? Is it financial? Is it being in the right place? Is it where you think you're at? And, like, do you have a plan?
Well, there's certainly the imposter syndrome. There's lots of that. It would be financial. I mean, like, if I had between, I mean, I have like a plan of where I would like to go with selling zines. Like, I have a hero, Simon Hanselman, one of my favorite comic artists, who hustled hard. Like, he's truly prolific, creates such incredible quantities of comics.
He's those people that we don't like.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, during the pandemic, like, I think for 8 or 9 months of the pandemic, he drew a 10-panel comic every single day. And it was insane because he had all the current events in it, but using his characters. Yeah. And then, of course, he wins Eisner Comic Book Awards. Sure. And so, yeah, he's just the man. I sort of lost my but so, yeah, I mean, if I could pay the bills with, I don't know, something like Patreon and doing monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly zines or something, that is the plan. Doing comics full time is definitely the dream. That's always been the dream.
Would you be somebody who wants to only put out your stuff and stay true to your stuff, or would you be willing to, you know, kind of do any kind of means necessary? I'm not saying obviously go draw like porn comics, but like, yeah.
No, I am like so stubborn. People, yeah. I'm like, I definitely feel like I'm bullheaded, and like, I've tried to collaborate with friends on comics before, and like, it goes so far, and then there's like a little bit of conflict in how we want it done or whatever. I certainly I want to let go of control a little bit. I think it'd just be better for me in general, but I want to do my own projects. I want to become a better writer and a better artist, and I'd like to do both.
Is comic books, obviously it's the true love, but working on, for example, an animated show, say you got, hey, we'd like you to be a writer on Invincible next season. Like, that's 100%.
No, if storyboarding on a show, I think would be amazing. I mean, it's so close to comics. I would love that experience. I would like to do more collaborative things like that. Yeah. I think that would be really cool to help build somebody else's vision where, you know, it's established. But whenever I'm there, like, from the ground up in the beginning, like, I want so much control.
I struggle with that so much. Even something like this that we're doing, like, it takes me a lot to be like, Bradley, I know you're so much better at audio. Can you please help me with that? Because I'm somebody who wants, I feel like comic book, I'm sure it's applicable, but for like video and whatever, like podcast, all that stuff. Yeah. I'm somebody who wants to, I want to do the video, I want to do the audio, I want to do all of it.
No, that makes total sense to me.
I don't get really good at one thing. I am envious of like a friend who went to school for art, but he said, I'm just audio. That's all he does. He's just an audio guy, and he's fantastic at it. And like I'm decent at a lot of things, but I'm not great at anything.
I totally feel that. I think it's so hard being a creative person and like falling in love with so many different mediums.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, I could do that. I know like if I spent enough time, I could probably figure that out. But then, yeah, I can't do everything.
Instagram also kills that, because I started doing a lot more photography, and then you go on to Instagram and you see the best photos that have ever been taken. And they're in your face, and it's like, well, mine is not going to compete with that.
Yeah.
And I know you can't think that way, but you do. And it's a human nature thing to do, but it's tough, especially social media.
So, yeah, I have so many thoughts on social media.
Oh, I'd love to hear some of them.
Well, because I deleted all my personal stuff. I just have the art thing. And because it was like, I mean, it's so weird for our generation with, because you bring every social circle that you've ever been in, like through your whole life. So there's people from middle school, and it's like, I have no business knowing what you're doing. I think it's cool for our parents' generation where they go and get on Facebook. It's
much more surface level.
Yeah.
Our generation likes to be a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
And it's like, because some people use it. For example, if I knew Bradley in middle school and then 10 years later I see Bradley and he's putting out music, I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see somebody who's partying in Miami.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, straight up. And then I also, well, there's the unhealthy comparison, but when you see people who are doing better than you.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then there's the unhealthy comparison when you see like, oh, well, they've had 2 divorces and we've been out of school for 8 years.
You start justifying like why you're better. And you're like, oh, I'm a bad person.
Yeah. No, I feel horrible. It's so dirty.
This is a fun question I like to ask a lot of people. What were you like in high school? Were you popular? Were you like totally just outcast? Just take me through your high school experience, but like what you think you were like in high school.
I was definitely kind of a quieter, weird kid for most of high school. And I think part of that, my freshman year of high school, I went to a super tiny private school called St. Stephen's. And my freshman class was 4 people, including me. And so you spent every single day with those 4 people, our homeroom teacher, and it was a living hell. Even though like one of my best friends still to this day was in that class, it was horrific. It was awful, and it wasn't a high school experience at all. Like it's so small, there's no events or anything. And I was like running cross country for a public school, but then you don't even really get to know those people. So it was just really hard to make friends or have any sort of social life. And then I transferred to a slightly bigger private Christian school. And sophomore year, everybody, like they made all their friend groups freshman year. And I knew one person at the school, and he was like an absolute social butterfly. And so I didn't get to spend that much time with him. And so I just was sort of very reclusive freshman, sophomore year. And then junior year, I became friends with my current roommate, actually, one of my best friends ever, and started to make more friends. And senior year I actually really enjoyed senior year. I think I knew it was ending.
Do you kind of feel like it's hard for somebody to be like, it's kind of like this last, like, for example, this last pandemic year, it's one of the best years of my life. And it's like I feel bad for saying that, but like for high school, it doesn't feel, because everyone's like, oh, high school's the worst.
Absolutely. And then just like, fuck everybody from high school.
Yeah.
And
it's like, no, some of my best, I play video games with 2 of my friends from high school every single Friday, and I love those guys to fucking death. And there was a part of me, especially in college, where I was like, no, I need to make different friends. I need to not be like I only have high school friends. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? These are the best dudes I know, and they know me so well, like the most comfortable people I've ever been with.
Totally. And I think like not having friends freshman and sophomore year, like, and then having like an actual circle to go do things with, it was like so hard to not be appreciative of that or to look back on that fondly. I'm like, yeah, there was a lot of shitty stuff in high school, but like I also like started to come out of my cocoon or whatever a little bit. So
what was your hairstyle in high school?
oh man, so well
Could you grow that beard?
I got the beard.
Did you look like a full ass man like by junior year?
Yeah. I had the beard by junior year. Yeah. And but no, freshman year I had the Jonas Brother curly big hair. Yeah, that was freshman year. Sophomore year started to rein it in a little bit, and then it was junior year, maybe senior year, where the Macklemore haircut became the thing. So yeah, definitely got that.
That's good for your school hair. Because like it did eventually get to us senior year, but everybody was still in the Bieber long hair to my shoulders, which I was in.
Hell yeah, dude! My hair was curly, so I always wanted like the swoosh, but
I made it.
Hell yeah, bro!
What I used to do is I used to wear a beanie to sleep. Yes. And then I'd curl my hair around it, and I was like, "No, this is just my hair. I look like I was born in California."
Oh, dude, that's amazing.
Reality, I'm shaping it every day to make it look like that.
My best friend from freshman year, I think he did that as well.
Yeah. It must have been so obvious to people. They're like, "He has straight hair," and then it's just got long enough where it just curls up.
The wings.
Yeah. Oh man.
High school.
Yeah.
It's
so
also
high school's fond for you.
Partially. I mean,
half of it.
It's hard also because of it being a religious school. And then like some weird Bible teachers that like said a lot of weird stuff. And then just like everybody's so judgmental. And then also being a tiny school, like everybody's business is like known, like gossip spreads so
with
fast.
With your art, with the Catholic school, is there some, because I know that the church does affect some of your art, and I know it's a pretty decent part of your life. Did that affect you creating it in high school, especially? Like, were teachers, when they saw it, were like, "You're the devil"?
Yeah,
especially with what you're drawing.
Yeah, and well, it was interesting because, I mean, I consider myself spiritual now, and I like basically all the mystical parts of every religion, and I think there's truth in all of it. But I definitely considered myself religious then, and so that was kind of hard also, where people are like, you worship the devil, and it's like, no, I don't, but I have bad feelings inside, and that's why I draw this. And also religion hasn't given me any tools to talk about these bad feelings, so I don't know what to do.
How do you, because as a high school kid, I was like, I just don't have those. That was how I dealt with it. Was yours to get it out with art? Because for me, I didn't really find, I did graphic design junior year and senior year, and that's what I thought I wanted to do, is be like a corporate graphic designer, which is what I ended up kind of doing. But I never did photography. I never did any abstract art. I never did any art. I played soccer.
That all started in college for you?
That all started, I kind of did graphic design. Because people would be like, "Oh, we need a logo," and they'll pay me like $100. And in college, I'm like, "Dude, that's beer for like fucking $4." But yeah, I didn't do any real I didn't do anything vulnerable, and I still think I haven't done enough vulnerable stuff. But I never wrote until college. Kyle Gandy's the reason I write. Nice, and thank the Lord, because he's like, he really helped me bring some of that stuff out. But yeah, I didn't do any of that stuff.
I fell in love with heavy metal music in high school.
It's not too shocking. But.
My favorite band of all time is Korn. And everything about that band has shaped so much of who I am and how I view art. And because the first time I heard Korn, that was the first time I heard words to fit with the anxious feelings, and actually gave terminology.
I do love the high school talk, because I don't know why I find that so interesting.
I think it's interesting too.
Because my thing about and I get a lot of slack for this with when I break up with a girl or something. I'm usually I'll become friends with them 3 or 4 months after. Just I don't know why. But the thing is I'm somebody who, when I look back on things, I generally only see the positives.
Yeah.
Which has its,
I feel that.
Which has its, positives. But,
Yeah.
But I also think that you should look at some of the negative. Like when I look back at high school, I don't remember any of the negative stuff because until my friends tell me about them, and then it all comes rushing back. But one of the things through high school that you're talking about is with Corn, all that stuff. Who inspires you the most to do art? You've talked to about a couple people today, but if you could pick one person to say this is the most inspiring thing, maybe not even as an artist, but as a person.
Man, that's a really good question. I mean, one of the biggest for sure is Pendleton Ward. Like, if I was going to go through like the creative breakthroughs, like it was discovering Spider-Man as a little kid. And then it's like Corn in high school where I'm like, oh, art can really be about something. It can be about pain. And then Adventure Time was like, I don't know, that rocked my world. Just like the creative freedom, the abstractness, the ridiculousness, but then still the heartfelt stories and like the coming of age. Pendleton Ward is definitely way up there for me.
Yeah, it took a lot for me not to be like, yes, fuck yes. Because as you can see, I got, Adventure Time over there. Mm-hmm. It's the first thing where I'm somebody who I only really want to watch comedies. And like, it's not necessarily the feel good. It's that I don't think the real world is that serious. So when I see like Law and Order, I'm like, nobody fucking talks like that.
Yeah.
So Adventure Time is probably my favorite show of all time because it mixes this weird thing of, this is so silly. Mm-hmm. It's a dog that has superpowers and a little boy and a rain of corn and a talking video game.
Yeah.
It's all this stuff. It shouldn't make any sense. It should just be silly.
Yeah.
Straight up silly. But it happens to be written in a way and conveyed in a way where it makes the problems that you go through visualized.
Yeah.
In a way that you can't really put your finger on. It's like when a song hits you and the lyrics don't really match anything that you've ever experienced, but it hits you in that way where you can't really explain it. Adventure Time seemingly does that most episodes.
Absolutely.
And it's abstract.
And
it's interesting.
Adventure Time like captures existential terror also, like in this children's show. And it is incredible.
Yeah, one of my big things when I was an edgy college kid, when I was, just starting to get into I was classified as like I had a big group of friends and we all met in freshman year. And then we all lived together as 8 guys in 2 apartments next to each other. And I was always deemed like the hipster guy. So like I definitely like fed into that.
Yeah.
And some of that was obviously Adventure Time. A lot of it was music based, but it was a lot of it being like, I need to be different for a reason.
Yeah.
And I need to find a reason to be different. And Adventure Time kind of showed that whole reasoning of like, you can be super different, but let's have a reason for it. And if you're just trying to be different, you see so many of these shows that try to be crazy and different and it's all wild, but Adventure Time keeps it grounded without being silly.
It's so grounded and so fun.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to end the show with is that I kind of have 2 questions is, do you think getting paid to do your art would destroy your love for it or really accelerate it?
That's a really good question. It's the type of problem that I would love to explore that and figure out what it would do to me. I certainly think it's that type of thing, like you said earlier, where you look back on the low pressure times when nobody was paying you. You don't have to answer to anybody. I think I would have to like do some sort of mindfulness practice to really ground myself, probably always having to go back to why am I doing this? Is it just for the money or is it for the love of it? Because I certainly always want it to come from an authentic place. Which what you were saying earlier about, I'm the same way with like not really remembering the bad things. Like freshman year of high school is literally like a dream blur because it was like all bad feelings and I don't really remember what happened on any given day.
Right.
But I do try to every now and then go revisit those bad feelings, and it helps that there's like a specific album that like is that time period and it's painful, and I don't listen to it that
Do you
often.
have an album in mind? Because as soon as you said that, I know exactly what album.
Yeah, what's yours?
Mine is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket.
Nice.
It's just because I didn't really realize how angsty, and especially I'm somebody who I look back and everybody's like, oh, my parents, but like, I feel like in this day and age, it's really common for people to go get therapy, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But then some people will go and use it as an excuse to blame people, which is, which I'm not saying it's not justified in a lot of it, but a lot of people will be like, well, my parents fucked me up. And then I look at it more as I look back and I go, wow, my parents did a great job with somebody who was angsty for no reason. We were fine, you know, lower middle class family. Like, we're doing fine. And my parents were supportive. I said, I want to go to art school. And they said, great.
Dude,
go for it. And I was like, and then I'm especially as a high school kid, I'm angsty. I'm listening to all this angsty music, like Panic at the Disco, like it's all surface level when I look into it, Fall Out Boy, all that stuff. But I look back and then I listen to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and it brings me back to like, oh, that's how I used to feel. And it's almost fun now looking at it.
I definitely agree. So the album for me, and I would label it my all-time favorite album, is Issues by Korn.
Okay.
And there was a period of years where I just like couldn't listen to it because it brought me back to being really depressed and not wanting to be alive. But then I got to the point of like, wow, like this album carried me through those feelings. And so now I have a deeper appreciation for it and I can jam it. Maybe it's just more like workout music now. But I feel that.
Going off that, do you cry easily?
After the last breakup, I finally, there was certainly a period of like 2 years or something where it was like, I can't cry anymore. Like it used to happen and now it doesn't. And then the breakup, I can cry again, and it like it's ever since then, you know, they get fewer and far between again. But
I'm pretty similar in that way. I think it's healthy. I think sometimes I'll get drunk and I'll put on certain things that I know just so I'm like, I need to get this out. I haven't cried in months. I just really need to get out. Do you have anything that like without a doubt you know it will make you cry, and since you know it's just going to manufacture itself?
Yeah, this is another one of my creative heroes, and probably one of the most influential people in my life recently. Not actually in my life, but Duncan Trussell.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. And the last episode of the Midnight Gospel, if I need to cry, I'm going to throw that on, and I'm going to bawl because I love my mom. Yeah. I love my mom.
I love I almost blocked it out until you said it. It was one of those
totally.
Where I was like, oh yeah, I bawled. Like I just went. But it was almost like a beautiful cry.
Oh
you know
yeah,
I mean? Especially with how Duncan talks about his mother.
Oh man, yeah, that is one of the most beautiful pieces of art like I've ever bared witness to.
Just beautiful for you, especially as a comic book person.
And I mean, so many of the I guess Pendleton and Jesse Ward from Adventure Time, what they did with that show, incredible.
Yeah. It was for a selective audience, but I think for people like us, it hit exactly where we needed it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I certainly think crying is like a similar, if you're really crying, if you're really going there, it's a similar experience to psychedelics where like your ego is getting crushed.
That's interesting.
And you are just feeling raw reality, and it's heavy and it's beautiful and it's all the things. And so I'm definitely a huge proponent of crying.
Yeah. I could imagine you're also a big proponent of mushrooms thing as well.
Yeah, not so much anymore, but
Me neither. I really used them, and then I used too much of the other drugs, and I was like, I need to take a fucking break. And I've been revisiting a couple years, but mushrooms were a big one. Yeah, so
I'm definitely there too. Where I mean, besides having a beer with bros, I'm mostly trying to be sober because I just feel like being present. It's like, especially if you're using a psychedelic if you are being intentional and you want to learn something from it, it's like you get the message, then you got to live it.
I found in moments of transition, like a new job, breakup, anything like that, it's super useful. But I don't understand people who use it like almost recreationally. I use it therapeutically.
Yeah.
Like me and Kyle have, and he's talked about it on the podcast, so it's not a big thing. It's like we've used Molly, which is a psychedelic, to take Molly and hang out. Like we're not going to dance clubs. We're hanging out because there's a lot of research out there, and I'm not going to try to say I know a lot of it, but that MDA is super useful. And same with, magic mushrooms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But all right, so it's not super long. What I'm going to get you on the last question is, and this is interesting because it kind of touches on your ego. Do you think you'll become a comic book writer who is successful in whatever you think is successful?
Yeah, I do. I mean, not to be super law of attraction, but because I feel like all of this, like the whole battle is against fear. And I have to say, like, I mean, there's times kind of recently where I was like, I don't think I can do this, and I'm never going to be what I want to be. And like now I feel like there's changes I've made in my life where I've realized I can make changes. Did it die?
It's fine.
Oh yeah. And so, yeah, I believe that I can do it. Yeah, I just have to.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you for being the first guest.
Yes, absolutely. My pleasure. This was awesome.
Yeah,
dude.
This was awesome.
I needed this.
The only other thing is I want to take a Polaroid of every guest, so you'll be the first one. But dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Marky. So I really appreciate it.
All right, cool, and we're out.
Thank you for tuning into this podcast. If you want more information on this artist, you can find it on our website, nøbodiesproject.com. You can follow us on Spotify as well as on our socials at the Nobodies Project on Instagram. But more importantly, we want you to be a part of this community, and you do this by submitting your artwork to us. We want the things that you're the most stoked on, maybe things that you're too nervous to show anybody else, but we want all of it. And you can do that by submitting your artwork at submit@thenobodiesproject.com. And we promise to look at every single person's artwork who is submitted, and everybody at the Nobodies Project will give you honest and heartfelt feedback. And thank you for being here and checking out the Nobodies Project.